What's up, everybody? Welcome to Southern Hood Blogs, a YouTube channel dedicated to giving you the truth about a lot of subjects that other YouTubers tend to sugarcoat. I want you to move to Florida if it's right for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to explore, discover beaches, swamps, communities that are beautiful. I want you to re-energize yourself, redefine yourself, reinvent yourself. But I want you to do it with good information so that there's no unfortunate regrets. Now, today, a lot of people hide their regrets. They have regrets, they make a wrong decision, and they run with it because they never want to show weakness. They never want to say, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. But on this channel, we give you the truth, and sometimes the truth doesn't sound as pretty as we would want it to sound. I'm not bashing Florida. I'm not talking down on Florida. In fact, I'm in Alabama now, and when I get a chance, I'm going to tell you guys things I don't like about Alabama. So if you're thinking about Alabama, and I've also been in Georgia, I'm going to tell you guys the truth because I want to contribute to the betterment, the happiness of people in a time where we're all, who doesn't want to be happy? We all want happiness, but times are rough right now. Unfortunately, I run into a Facebook group called Moving to Florida. And what I have seen in this group is disturbing. The censorship of information. Apparently, if it's not positive, you can't mention it. If it's slightly not positive, they block you, they delete you, and they're misleading 15,000 people in this group by omitting the truth or useful information. I think if you have 15,000 people that are joining your group, you have a serious responsibility to give those people the right information so that they can make a good decision. But when you're censoring that information avidly, you have 3 or 4 people avidly filtering that information so that only certain things are put on that website. You're really hurting a lot of people's lives because that information, I'm not doing it to hurt people. I don't want to hurt people or crush their dreams. I want them to have good information so that they can make decisions that they're going to be happy with. So the goal is to make you happy, to give you information so you can make decisions that are going to contribute to your happiness. You won't be happy when you discover surprises about your new state. May it be Florida or Alabama or Georgia or any other state. Surprises that nobody told you about. Or they tried to tell you, but it was censored because you got information from a Facebook group full of, I don't know, the realtors, I don't know what developers, I don't know who's running these groups, but they're definitely malintentioned. Developers, realtors, and all types of other scum are trying to deceive people and prevent them from getting the information that they need so they can make a sound choice. It's too late to go back. Moving is expensive. After you spent $7,000 or $8,000 moving, you may not be able to go back. They need to know now what those things are that they need to be worried about. I'm going to tell you guys, here are some of the nasty surprises that you're going to find in Florida. Number 1 is a crisis of addiction, a rampant crisis. Entire towns are in crisis. Bradenton, West Palm Beach, Orlando, Broward County, Pasco, Polk County, Hernando County. These are places that may have beautiful beaches and beautiful attractions. These places are aching from their addiction. Other places are suffering secretly. Since they can afford to buy their desires, they don't end up on the streets begging for money. Nonetheless, these places are still struggling with a serious situation. Now, I've been in Alabama. Alabama is not known for having the greatest statistics. It's not known for having the greatest anything. However, I can tell you that the situation in Florida is much more serious than anything I have seen in Alabama. And Georgia is also in very bad state. At least the southwest side of Georgia is in very bad shape. You need to know this. It's going to affect your life when you're in the drive-thru at Starbucks. There's going to be somebody begging. Maybe they're a little bit slicker down there in Florida. They're not just some raggedy-looking person. They're a lot more elaborate. It might be somebody playing an instrument. You know, it might look like somebody who is a little bit more, I don't know, perhaps more affluent, or they may look more hip. So it's not always that same homeless person you expect in your mind with the raggedy pants and the long beard. These are adaptable people. They are professional scammers. And you're going to run into them everywhere, from the drive-thru at Starbucks to the parking lot in Walmart to the exits on the highways when you get off. I was in Ocala, Florida, and a person that appeared to be disabled by a bus stop pretended like they fell and asked for help. And people got out and helped them. I was watching the person before they made it to that intersection, and they were probably faking it. And we saw this, and many naive people fell for it. They're much more elaborate, much more tactful than what you would expect. Florida is aching. It is disturbing what's going on in Florida with this situation, and you need to know about it. Now, if you're coming from a state where you're already used to that, then perhaps it won't be a problem to you. I've had people saying, "Oh, I was in Pennsylvania. This is way better than Pennsylvania." Well, if it's better than Pennsylvania, then when you come to Florida, you might think it's paradise or better. But it's seriously a concern in Florida. You need to know this about Florida. It's probably, now when I look back on Florida, one of the biggest problems that the state has, and it started little by little and little by little, and it crept up on you. You didn't notice it. You didn't know. If you're in Florida, you may not be aware of it. You may think it's normal by now, but it's not normal. I know my street very well where I was in Florida. I spent 20 years there, and I believe about 40 to 60% of households have somebody either dealing with addiction, may it be to a legal substance or an illegal substance. They have an addiction, maybe to a beverage or to something that they burn or something that they inhale in some other way. I calculated that the street where I was on, 40 to 60% of the population there is a household that is dealing with an active addiction of some type of substance of some sort. Definitely extremely high. I think what contributes to this problem in Florida is that there's so many transient people and so many people that end up in Florida from other places, and they bring these nasty habits from other places. And because the population's transient and the law enforcement and everything is transient, from government seats, everything in Florida is transient and moving, it really gives people an opportunity to filter in with whatever type of bad things they have. Where in other places like Alabama, where I'm at now, it is very difficult for you to start something and not have to bump into a lot of people while you're doing it. Where I'm at now, there was somebody who was drug dealing on my street, and they have a very lengthy prison sentence. I don't know how they went about doing it, but they definitely went about doing it. And I've heard that here in Alabama, if you do something wrong, the sheriff is going to come looking for you. And they may not be as textbook about it as you would want them to. So in a lot of places, the criminals can very nicely hide behind lots of technicalities. Here in Alabama, if you're doing something wrong and it's obvious, they're going to come get you, and they're going to find a way to get you. So it's not a state where you want to bring your poison to, because they're going to get you. They're not going to play technicalities here, and they're not going to play textbook. If you're doing something wrong, they're coming for you. And honestly, I believe that if somebody, that's the type of sheriff's office that I want. Here in Alabama, everybody's also carrying weapons with them, and it's just a whole different environment. And then you go into Georgia, which is right next to it, and Florida, which is it's basically an invisible line between Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. And each one of these states has different things going on because the laws and the way things are handled are different in every state. In the state of Georgia, you can see people doing hand-to-hand transaction in front of a police officer, and you're like, wow, why doesn't anything happen about that? Because it's a different state, different laws, different things going on. And I guess all that contributes to each state having its individual crises and problems on a very individual level, where you cross an indivisible line into another state and it's totally different. Laws, economy, problems, all of that. Surprise number 2, rude, scary, violent, angry people. The people of Florida at times can be unbearable. In my neighborhood, we were scared of certain individuals. We had a guy that called the cops twice. We had, in the last 6 months that we were in Florida, probably at least 6 or 7 instances where we were involved with police officers, whether it was reporting drug dealing on our street several times. Nothing ever happened. Nothing happened. In fact, I did a live stream where I was talking to the cop and I said, "Hey, buddy, What's going on down there? Nothing yet, huh? Nothing yet, huh? Here in Alabama, they really take care of that. In fact, like I said before, there was a drug dealer on the street, and they are now in very deep pits of life. They don't tolerate that here. Unfortunately, in Florida, the people are, like I said, belligerent. I had another person on the street, very angry person. He was screaming profanities at me. I was doing something that I was in my right to do. I wasn't violating any laws. However, he didn't like what I was doing, and he was angry and bitter, and he'd go out and have fits of anger, and he threatened me with his weapon. And of course, when the cops would come, he said he didn't use it, and that was the end of that. You're not going to do that here in Alabama. If you're one of those people that thinks you're going to be garnishing weapons on people, you're going to run into a very serious surprise. One, that everybody here is packing, and two, that you're not going to act like a fool out here. They're not going to tolerate it. So in Florida, you may find lots of angry. I lived in a gated community in Naples, and the guy next door broke my sprinkler heads and tried to charge me to fix them. I had a lady that was I didn't know who she was, but she would walk at 5 in the morning or something like that, or 5:30 in the morning. She would walk the neighborhood, and I didn't know her. She told me, "Hey, I came by in the morning and I saw this guy breaking your sprinklers." Then he tried to charge me for fixing them in a gated community in Naples on a golf course. Unbelievable. There is so much amnesty given to elderly people and wealthy people in Florida because of social class and all that, that the law in Alabama has a much higher incarceration rate. Florida has a lower incarceration rate. That doesn't mean that Alabama has more crime. One of the things that people told me, Alabama has more crime. And again, back to me being lied to. When I went on Google, some of the towns that I looked up, the crime rates were horrible. And now that I'm here on the ground, it's not that bad. In fact, here in Alabama, I've noticed that stores leave stuff like barbecue grills, bags of mulch, bags of sand, tractors and stuff, and I've done live streams showing how they leave these things outside, aluminum furniture. In Florida, they can't leave those things outside because they won't be there the next day in the morning. Here in Alabama, in these towns that are supposedly, according to Google, the highest crime rate towns, whatever, you can leave stuff outside and it doesn't disappear overnight. One, because there's not these junkies running around, and two, because people are packing, and three, because law enforcement, if they catch you, they will incarcerate you. So it's not that Florida doesn't have more crime happening, it's that Florida tries to keep their crime low on purpose. I am going to be honest, many occasions in Florida, I should have been arrested, not once or twice, a lot of times, and every single time, the cops let me off the hook. They do not want to raise their crime rates unless you have to really be looking to get arrested in Florida to get arrested, because 90% of times even they just don't move forward with it. Where here in Alabama, the mentality is if you break the law, we're going to get you. And even if we can't get you, if we know you did it, even if it's not textbook, we're still going to do it because we don't want you out here doing all types of foolish crap. There's no amnesty here in Alabama. So yes, they have a higher incarceration rate. That contributes to a higher crime rate. Does that mean that it's safer in Florida? Absolutely not. It just means that in Florida, out of 90 situations, maybe one or two of those situations result in an arrest because there's amnesty, and the police forces are purposely trying to keep the crime rates down because they don't want to lose tourism and they don't want to lose people moving into their communities. So they purposely try to keep the crime rates down. It's kind of more invisible. In Alabama, if you do something stupid here, I guarantee you're not going to catch a break. In fact, ask people that live here in Alabama, and they'll tell you, you're not going to catch a break. One of the first warnings I got from Alabamans were, hey, dude, you're not going to catch a break. If you're speeding, if you're doing this, that, if they catch you, whatever it is you're doing, you're not going to catch a break here. They will find you. They will arrest you. You do the crime, you'll get the punishment. So when you look at crime statistics, they can be very misleading because many of these districts are purposely trying to keep their crime rates down. So what you see on paper, what you see on Realtor, and what you see on Google, that is just a suggestion. When you hit the ground, you'll find things out that you won't find in Google. You'll find things out that you won't find on Realtor. You're going to find things out that they lied to you on a Facebook group, because I was in Alabama Facebook groups and I was asking questions and I was getting very, very wrong and misleading information about my move. One example, I talked to a guy on Facebook directly. We were messaging directly. I told him about the neighborhood where he lives in. I knew the neighborhood. I wanted to move into this particular neighborhood in the city of Montgomery. I asked him a very simple question. I asked him, how often do you hear gunshots? He said, I've never heard a gunshot. Now, this morning, where I live here in Alabama, they were shooting right outside my doorsteps, 3 or 4 houses down. But that is in the countryside. That is normal. It's acceptable. It's not a crime-related thing. If you're living inside of city limits of Montgomery and you're shooting guns at night, that is not a recreational activity. That is full-on gangsters. Now, I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and I would hear gunshots every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then there was times when maybe twice a week if things heated up. Usually, it'd be about twice a month you would hear gunshots, and it was usually a drive-by shooting. Okay, so I understood how much, how often you hear gunshots relates to what street level activity is going on in a neighborhood. So I asked him, have you ever heard, I didn't ask him, have you ever, I said, how often do you hear them? He says, I've never done it, never heard it. Me and my family, we're up barbecuing till 1 in the morning in Montgomery, and we've never heard it. So I met these people, and I helped them. They had a little problem. I ran into a little problem. And I helped them. I actually resolved. I didn't know who they were, but I helped them. I saw somebody that needed help. Boom, I helped them. And I was able to get some really good information off these people. This was like our first week in Alabama. We were still looking to see which house we were going to buy. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do. And these people knew the area. And there's this older white woman. And she's there smoking her cigarette. You can tell she's, a white woman from the South, like a Florida woman, like an Alabama, like like you've heard of a Florida woman or a Florida man. Well, this is like an Alabama woman. Like you could just tell that this lady was going to give it to you straight up, player. This lady, I asked her, I helped them. We were cool, so they knew that I was cool because I took care of them, whatever. And I said, hey, I'm going to move into this neighborhood. How often does it go down around here? She says, wait a little bit. You're going to see. She lit up her cigarette, and I was like, oh, for real? She's like, you're going to find out. You need to end up in them suburbs or whatever. You know what I mean? She told me the raw deal, the raw package. People on Facebook lied to me. This guy that I was texting on Messenger that I met through a Facebook group, guy was full of crap. She said, she lit up her cigarette. She said, you're going to find out in a little bit. It's almost dark. Sure enough, you can hear you can hear like the gunshots at night. She's like every single night. Wait a little bit. And sure enough, gunshots, cars peeling out, and then driving through the neighborhood fast. Definitely environment. And we hung out there on her front porch for like an hour, just watching the foot traffic and the people driving. And it became very obvious that this neighborhood was very undesirable. Even though it was, I had the prejudice that, it's a white neighborhood, so it's going to be okay. Oh, no. This white neighborhood is scarier than some of the black neighborhoods in the city of Montgomery. It's called Perry Hill. It looks beautiful in the daytime. However, in the night, it's a whole different world because it's in Montgomery, baby. So anyways, what you read on Realtor.com and what you read on the internet is not going to be, when you touch the ground, budget to have an exploration period, because you will find things on the ground in one day. Some things you'll find out in 30 minutes. Some things you'll find out in one day. Some things you'll find out in a month period. I think by a month, you've pretty much got the place figured out. Take the time and budget to be able to explore the place, because some things take time to find out. And here's the other thing. We came here with $110,000 in the bank. If you're moving and you have money, you can live anywhere you want. So if you're retiring in Florida, that doesn't matter to you. You're going to live in a gated community with a guard outside, and you're going to have money. If you don't like it, you can move somewhere else. It doesn't matter. My warning is specifically at working class people. Jobs in Florida do not pay. rents are high. If you're going to go work an hourly position and you're going to go rent a house because you don't have enough money to buy or you don't have enough money to pay it off, your life could be misery within a very short period. It will become stressful, and going to the beach when you're at the brink of a divorce is not as fun as it sounds. It's just they sell you a dream about Florida, but they leave out many of those solid details that you need to know. It all comes down to how much money you have. Would I recommend somebody who has $3,000 in the bank to move? Not into Florida, anywhere. Gosh, if you can't manage to save money where you're at now, in an environment you know, what makes you think you're going to save money in a totally new environment when you're going to have all types of unexpected expenses? Look, if I had to come here to Alabama with $3,000 or $4,000 in the bank, it would have never happened. It would have been terrifying. I'd still be back in Florida on the beach, broke, unhappy, and miserable. But in an environment that I was familiar with. If you're going to move to a totally new environment and you're not doing well economically in the environment that you're already acclimated to, what makes you think you're going to do better in a totally new environment? Now, moving does re-energize you, it revamps you, it just makes you a whole new person. I've had so many positive changes, my attitude, my happiness, all that has just been through the roof. We're already broke. We've spent all the money we had, but we're already making income, so we're kind of like, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore because we're already making money again. So, you know what I mean? Like that, we're already the honeymoon period, as one of my subscribers called it, the honeymoon period. He says you're enchanted now with Alabama because you're still in the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period is over. We're kind of settled in at this point. There's no $20,000 left over in the bank at this point. We're now back to normal life. You know what I mean? Like we're back to normal. The honeymoon period is over, and I'm actually very content with everything, the way everything worked out, really. How much money you have makes a huge difference when you're moving. If you're moving with less than $10,000, you need to be terrified. If you're moving with $20,000, you'll make it. If you're moving with $100,000 like I was able to pay my house cash, buy a new SUV, fix up some things around the house, buy a few little things I wanted, and still have money in the bank. And besides, I have YouTube, which is basically a full-time job as far as income goes. So it's like I don't have to worry. I didn't leave Florida because I had to. I had my house paid off in Florida. I was self-employed, and I had a YouTube video, a bunch of YouTube videos that were making me enough money to live off of. I didn't have to leave Florida. I left Florida because I wanted to. Because my economical situation allowed me to do it. You understand? So it's a difference between somebody who makes, a full-time salary from the internet and has $100,000 in either in real estate or in cash. Either way, you can turn it into real estate. You can turn it into cash. Either way, you still have that money. And if you turn it into real estate, you can keep that money in rotation. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want. It's different when you have $100,000. So if you're moving to Florida and you have $300,000, there's not a lot for you to worry about. You will be okay for a while because I'm living in the woods in Alabama more comfortably than I was in Florida. But I'm doing it because I have money. So that's one other thing you need to look at if you're moving. How much money are you moving with? If you're moving to Orlando and you have less than $10,000, you are in for the most miserable and scary ride of your life. I've helped a lot of people move to Florida, and when somebody tells me they're coming to Florida, and I ask them, how much money do you have in the bank? And they tell me, we got $3,000 in the bank. I'm like, what are you thinking? Well, we can sell a few things when we have $6,000 in the bank. I'm like, what? Oh, you're making $18, $19 an hour in your state right now. You're going to go make $10, $12 an hour, and you're going to enter a labor force that's more competitive. That's the other thing about Florida. If you pay attention to this video, we're driving through Bradenton. You'll notice these are mostly rental units, mostly working class people. It's a very competitive work environment. And not only is it competitive, but it's also dictated on who you are, what abilities you're going to have. What, like, if you're a Puerto Rican from New Jersey or New York or Pennsylvania moving to Florida, you're not going to be the manager. I can guarantee you they're not going to let you climb up that ladder that quickly, because there's 50 people who are in early retirement. They have their houses paid off. They have a nice little car, and they'll do that job that you're willing to do as a part-time, and they don't care how much they get paid because they are in early retirement. Also, they aren't going to have the drama and necessity and circumstances that you're going to have in your life because they're in retirement. They ain't stressed out. They ain't worried. And they have 15 years of 20 years of experience in that field. So they're overqualified. You're not. You're not qualified. You're going to compete against those people for a job. So you need to have a wake-up call. If you're moving to Florida broke, I definitely don't recommend it. If you're broke and you want to move somewhere, move to Alabama. You're like where I am now, you'll be 3 hours from the beach in Florida. I don't know what to tell you. Or at least end up in Gainesville or Ocala or Jacksonville, where you can find rent that's a little bit more affordable. Do not move to Fort Myers, Naples, or Southeast Florida. Orlando and Tampa included in that. If you're planning to just be a normal working class person and you don't have any money in the bank, having money will make your life extendedly better. So before you move, why don't you think about saving a little bit of money so when you do move, you'll be able to have a little bit of a cushion, a safety net, so that you have more time to adjust. Maybe you'll have more time to explore. We didn't have time to explore. So, like, I tell people, I had 100,000, 110,000, whatever in the bank. It's gone now, so it doesn't even matter. And I had to rush buying a house because every single day that you're paying hotels, gas, eating out is money flying out the door at just an incredible rate that you can deplete any bank account in a very short period of time. So budget for your move and you'll be all right. All I'm trying to tell you is don't move to Florida broke. That's why the homeless situation in Florida is incredible. Florida used to be the third highest homeless population. It is now the second. Only California has more homeless people than Florida. Florida has exceeded New York and is now the second state, in Texas as well. Florida is the second state with the highest homeless population, and it is only going to increase. Me personally, I can sell my house in Alabama, and I can move back to Florida, and I could probably live in Naples in a gated community for 6 to 9 years without even having to work and not have to worry. Because I have a lot of people that say stuff, I've had a lot of haters say stuff like, yeah, you moved to Alabama because you can't afford to live in Florida. No, I can afford it. I just don't want to because I have enough money to where I have the ability to live wherever I want. And I have YouTube channels that make me money while I'm sleeping. Yet, I am terrified. Today's a Sunday, and I've probably worked 8 hours today. Yesterday, I probably worked 14 hours because if you're a smart person, you're always planning ahead. You're always working. You never stop working. When you see me not uploading too many videos, that lets you know that I am totally full. Like, I'm just working hard. Then you have people who are broke, renting, paying off cars, in debt, and they're sitting at home sleeping, watching TV or something. People told me there were no opportunities in Alabama. There's more opportunities in Alabama for a normal working class person than there are in Florida. It's not the lack of opportunity that makes a lot of people in Alabama poor. It's the lack of effort. It's the laziness that people have here that makes them poor. And hey, I'm not criticizing. I'm just noting. I'm observing. I don't pay your rent, so I don't care if you're lazy. You're the one who's going to be needing stuff. So I'm not criticizing. I don't pay your bills, so what do I care? But just as a general observation, the reason there's poverty here is because people just don't want to get up and go work. But again, misinformation. They told me it was because there was no opportunities in Alabama. There are opportunities, just nobody wants to go for them. That's misinformation that was fed to me. So I was fed that people here were hateful. These are the friendliest people I've ever met. And I've been directly telling people, I'm a Cuban, she's from Michigan, northern state. They have a term here that they use to describe people from the north. not a friendly term, bad information. We were told people were hateful. We were told there was no opportunities. All that was bad information. The people are friendly. There are opportunities. So I was fed, and it frustrates me how much bad information I was fed about Alabama, and that it's a miserable, backwards place and all that. There's a few things about Alabama that I definitely do not like, but you have to take the pros and the cons. So when you look at Florida, say, okay, well, you have this problem, you got that problem, but you got beaches, you got sunshine, lots of sunshine. That's why it's called the Sunshine State. It really is. It's kind of depressing here in Alabama not to see the sun as often. It really is the Sunshine State. You have Cuban food, Dominican. I mean, just the food in Florida, the Latin food in Florida is incredible. I can't get that here in Alabama. There's a lot of really great things about Florida. The communities are beautiful. The palm trees are beautiful. I mean, the vibes are generally amazing along the beach. You can just chill. I mean, the beach is incredible. The fishing used to be great, and now it's still Florida fishing. It's better than Alabama, that's for sure. So there are great things about Florida. I'm not trying to bash Florida as a horrible place. I'm just saying, look at the pros, look at the cons, and you'll know. And also look at your personal economy. If you're a reckless, consumeristic person who is always broke, if you're the type of person that you're paying those overdraft fees all the time because you're irresponsible economically, then moving to Florida is not going to change your personal spending habits. If you can't manage to be successful in the environment you're familiar with, what makes you think you're going to be No, it's not going to happen. So don't expect, have realistic, matter of fact, if you expect, like my expectations for Alabama were so bad, I expected high crime, which was definitely not the case. I expected hateful people, definitely not the case. I expected lack of opportunity in work, definitely not. So my expectations for Alabama, based on all the wrong information that I was fed by people on the internet and by people who live here, I was fed so much wrong information about Alabama that my expectations were very low. So now I did have some surprises. Guess what? They were good surprises. And that's how I want your move to be. Whatever your expectations were about moving to Florida, I want you to exceed those expectations. But you exceed those expectations when you take into consideration all the things that could go wrong, and you consider that versus all the things that can go good. That way, you don't have nasty surprises. Here's another nasty surprise that nobody told me about in Alabama. Scorpions inside the house. We have already killed 6 of these things since we've been here. I hope we got it under control. That was scary, and at times it's very uncomfortable to even go to sleep at night wondering if they're going to crawl on you while you're sleeping. That's a very scary thing. Another scary thing about Alabama is that you have to have a gun here. If you don't have a gun, you're a suspect. You need to have a gun. The day that I bought a gun and started shooting it, all my neighbors became my friends. Until I was outside shooting guns, nobody was cool with me because they might think if you don't have a gun that maybe you have criminal charges or whatever. I don't know what the mentality is. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, or maybe it's, okay, if this person doesn't have a gun, then they may have a felony, so they may think you're a criminal. People here are judgmental. That's another thing I've noticed about Alabama. People in Florida don't tend to be that way. So it's a totally different environment. I don't want you to be unhappy. I don't want you not to move to Florida. I just want you to take everything into consideration and understand what you're actually going to get, because that is the scariest thing about moving. And your outlook needs to be accurate, but it also needs to be positive. And when you start to run into nasty surprises, every one of those surprises is going to make your heart drop. And I don't want you to go through that, because I went through that. So please, consider all these things. I hope you have a beautiful day.